Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to continue our NFL predictions with Week 6. Last week, it was not a good week for me. Went 6-8, which brings a total season record of 42-36. And honestly, I thought I had a lot to say about last week, but honestly, I don't have much to say at all. But anyway, as a reminder, the Miami Dolphins, Los Angeles Rams, Kansas City Chiefs, and Minnesota Vikings, they all have bye weeks this week. So that means we'll have another week of no unbeatens falling, because the only two unbeaten teams, they're on bye weeks. And we're going to start off with Thursday Night Football with the San Francisco 49ers taking on the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle, they laid an egg at home against the New York Giants of all team, a New York Giant team that did not have Malik Neighbors. He did not play, but for the most part, outside of that, Daniel Jones was kind of efficient. He didn't make the big mistake on the day, but that Giants defensive line, they feasted on Seattle. And all it took was a blocked field goal to basically put the icing on the cake. Meanwhile, the 49ers, this is a team that just can't shake the injury bug for nothing. They lost at home to the Arizona Cardinals, in which most of their fans was not there. They actually were, but I heard they watched the game from inside of the stadium, not outside, because the heat was that unbearable. NFL really needs to make a rule change about this heat index if they want to protect their fans and players. But no, they rather care about the almighty dollar. But anyway, 49ers, they lost. And the big injury in that game was to their kicker, Jake Moody. I'll say this, had they had a kicker in this game, the 49ers probably would have won. And without their kicker, they had to change their game plan a lot. But the 49ers also didn't do themselves any favors. But anyway, this game is going to be played it's in Seattle. Both teams, I feel like both teams are more desperate for a win than you think. And I was going to give this win to the Seattle Seahawks, but because the 49ers have their number, I am going to roll with the 49ers to win this game. Hopefully they can get back on track. But if they don't and they fall to 2-4, you're going to start hearing some rumblings. And we got another London game, and it features a London regular with the Jacksonville Jaguars as they take on the Chicago Bears. And this is technically a home game for the Chicago Bears. For the Jaguars, they finally got a win. They won their first game against the Indianapolis Colts, which for some reason for them is not a hard thing to do, especially when they're playing in Jacksonville. Seriously, the Colts just cannot win in that building. Meanwhile, the Bears beat the Carolina Panthers and they made it look super easy. Caleb Williams had his best day as a pro yet, and they ran the ball well, they threw the ball well. They basically did whatever they want to against that terrible Carolina defense. This game, now this one I think could go in any direction. And and you know what? Part of me wanted me to take the Jacksonville Jaguars to win, but I'm going to give a very small advantage to the Chicago Bears to win this game. I just like their offense a little more, and that defense is better than what people think. But for Jacksonville, I'll say this. Since it's in London, I will not be surprised if they win this game. And then moving on, we have the Arizona Cardinals taking on the Green Bay Packers. Cardinals got a huge road win against the 49ers. And check this out. They're 2-0 in the division. Who saw that coming? And the Green Bay Packers, they beat up on the Rams in their game. Jordan Love, although he was good, not great, he had a very terrible pick six during the game, but he was able to rebound and made a couple good throws in that game. Now with this game being back in Lambeau, I could pick the Arizona Cardinals. I do think they have a shot to win because I think this year they're just a side and everyone's thorn. But with Green Bay being at home, Xavier McKinney playing all out, playing at an all-pro level, and the defense being very underrated for Green Bay, I'm going to roll with the Packers to win. And then we have an AFC South matchup between the Indianapolis Colts and the Tennessee Titans. The Colts, they lost to Jacksonville Jaguars, and despite losing in a late rally, Joe Flacco looked very, very nice. Meanwhile, the Tennessee Titans, they had a bye week last week, but the last time you saw them, they got their first win in the season against the Miami Dolphins, just like what they did last year. They went to Miami and got a win. Good for you, Tennessee. And this game being playing in Nashville, I do think the Titans do have a shot, and the spread is very, very even. But I'll say this: if Joe Flacco is starting again, and there's a good chance he might be, I'm gonna roll with the Indianapolis Colts to win. No disrespect to Anthony Richardson, if he is playing, I'm probably gonna still keep the pick. But Joe Flacco, he is him. And following that, we have the Houston Texans taking on the New England Patriots. And it's Patriot Week. And not only that for the Patriots, Drake May will be getting his first career start as New England feel like he's ready to unleash his superpowers, whatever that is. But anyway, for the Patriots, they had a home loss against the Miami Dolphins in a game that I actually picked them to win, and they had a shot to winning it too, but yeah, they didn't. They didn't get the job done. Meanwhile, the Houston Texans were hand gifted a win, but thanks to the Buffalo Bills' incompetence on the Bills later on. But what did it cost them? It cost them a nice Nico Collins, as I just been told, he's being placed on injury reserve thanks to a hamstring injury. Well, there goes my fantasy season. But without Nico Collins, I still think the Texans are going to be okay. They still got Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell. And with this being Drake May's first career start and the Patriots' offensive line being the absolute worst this year, there shouldn't be a problem of the Texans getting a win. But I won't. But I'll say this: this game could be low scoring. All I'll say. And now we have an NFC South matchup with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the New Orleans Saints. Y'all remember when the Saints were 2-0, putting up 40 points a game, and looked like the best team in the NFL? Those were good old times. Instead, but since then, things have been looking very, very off for the Saints. Lost their third game in a row, lost to the Chiefs on Monday Night Football. And matter of fact, they lost Derek Carr to an oblique injury. He is set to miss multiple weeks. So I don't even know who's going to be the starting cornerback. I've heard it's going to be Hayner. Jake Hayner is his name. I don't know. But I also heard rumblings that Spencer Rattler could be getting an opportunity as well. Who who knows? But we'll know when I see it. Meanwhile, for the Bucks, they lost a tough divisional matchup with the Atlanta Falcons on Thursday Night Football. But don't blame the offense because they did play well. The defense, I think they got gassed out in the end. So that's what probably happened to the Bucks. And because I don't know the quarterback situation for the New Orleans Saints right now, I have pretty much no choice but to go with the Bucks in this one. On the road, I think they could get a real bounce back win, and once again we get another battle of Mike Evans versus Marshawn Lattimore. And now we have the worst team in football taking on the worst team in football. I'm just kidding. The Cleveland Browns taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. Last time we saw the Eagles, they had a bye week last week, but they got shellacked by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as most of their skill positions and Lane Johnson were all out for the offense. Thus, the offense struggled. Now, for the Browns, I think we're all in agreement that they're the worst team in football. Because Deshaun Watson, he needs to be benched. I'm sorry. He's got to get benched. I think the locker room will be on the verge of mutiny if he doesn't get benched sooner rather than later. I say put Jameis Winston in, because what Jameis can do is people will buy in his little and his one-off metaphors, whatever he has. they're funny. And I think he's a great team guy. Put Jameis Winston in the game. Bench the $250 million quarterback if he's not playing good. But it comes with an asterisk because their offensive line, they have never been healthy all season. David Njoku, I heard he's been out for a couple weeks now, and they still don't have Nick Chubb back fully healthy. But yeah, the Browns are indeed the worst team in football. I have no choice but to pick the Eagles to win this game. Now that they had their bye week, AJ Brown, he could be back for this one. Devontae Smith will be back for this one. And I don't. But if the Eagles lose this game, oh boy, it's going to be very ugly in that city. And now we have the Los Angeles Chargers taking on the Denver Broncos. Broncos, winners of 3 straight. And last week they had a pretty big divisional win over the Las Vegas Raiders. Bo Nix, he looked pretty well, but more importantly, PS2, Patrick Surtain Jr. was the star of that show. He was amazing in that game. Meanwhile, for the Chargers, they had a bye week last week, but they lost. And last time we saw them, they lost to the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, hopefully, their bye week, like with the Eagles, I hope they got healthy. Herbert, hopefully he healed, took time to heal up. Maybe they could get an offensive lineman or two back from injury in this game. That will be very, very nice for the Chargers to do. And I don't know, this one's kind of a toss-up. And with both these defenses playing pretty well, this might be another low-scoring game for me. But I'm going to give a very small edge to the Los Angeles Chargers. And you know what? I'm actually going to change that pick. Let me change that pick. I'm actually going to roll with the Denver Broncos at home because the Chargers, if there's one thing I learned from them, is that they struggle in Denver for some reason. And right now, the Broncos, they started having a little bit of momentum going for them. I'm going to go with the Broncos to win. And now we have an old school 1970 rivalry with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Las Vegas Raiders. Steelers had to wait all the way to 1:30 in the morning to lose to the Dallas Cowboys on a last-second touchdown. Well, they lost, but now the Steelers losers of 2 straight. The F word is starting to float around in Pittsburgh. And no, I'm not talking about the one that rhymes with duck. I'm talking about the one that rhymes with rods. That's starting to float around. Meanwhile, for the Raiders, they got blown out by the Denver Broncos. Gardner Minshew was benched during this game for Aiden O'Connell. So, coming into this game, we don't really know what the QB situation is going to be. And because of that, I'm going to be brief with this one. I got to go with the road team Steelers to get a rebound win. I think TJ Watt is going to have his way with the Raider offensive line. And it's another one of those low-scoring games. But I won't be surprised if the Raiders win. I'll give them that much. And I feel like these last 3 games were in connection with each other in some way. But anyway, the Detroit Lions will be traveling to Dallas to take on the Cowboys. Lions had a bye week, but Jared Goff, last time we saw him, he had the perfect day. A perfect 18 for 18 passing, yet he did not achieve a 158.3 day. Lions right, and that was pretty much a get-right game for the Detroit Lions because their offense have been subpar to that point, but now with a bye week, chance to get healthy, chance to regroup, they could get back on the train. And speaking of teams getting back on the train, the Dallas Cowboys, whom they had to wait all the way to 1:30 in the morning to get the win on the road against their longtime old school rival, the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Dak Prescott almost lost them the game. Dak Prescott ended up winning the game for them. So that's something to hang his hat on. And for this game, if I recall, last time these two teams play was all the way back in week 17, and ref ball was in full effect for this game. As y'all know, that 2-point conversion, ineligible receiver thing. Y'all know what happened in that last game. So the Lions, I know they had this in the back of their mind. They circled this game on their calendar for this one. And with me, with the Lions, knowing that I actually think they are the better team here, I have no choice but to go with them for the win. As for the Dallas Cowboys, at least you have a bye week next week, so you could get healthy, I guess. And sadly for my state, we will not be able to watch that game because we'll be stuck watching the Atlanta Falcons taking on the Carolina Panthers. Falcons, Kirk Cousins, 500 yards passing, but more importantly, 500 yards passing with a dub. He looked amazing in that game. And I think this game will pretty much serve as his coming out party for the Atlanta Falcons. And the Falcons, they just find ways to get wins late in games. Late when the chips are down, they find a way to pull it together, get a dub. And that's what you want to see. Meanwhile, for the Panthers, they had a rough outing against the Chicago Bears, and right now their injuries has just been brutal, especially on the defensive side of ball. And I think this game they pretty much gonna be starting about 3 ball boys and a janitor at this point, and we're already at week 6. But other than that, Andy Dalton did not look good in this game. Offense couldn't get anything going. Defense couldn't stop the pass or the run because of all the injuries. And against the Falcons, this might be a brutal offensive showcase for them. So, but only thing I gotta say is a 6 point favorite. Yeah, that might be a bit of a reach. And speaking of things being a reach, the Sunday night game this week against the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the New York Giants. The Bengals put up, the good news is the Bengals put up 38 points. The bad news is they still lost, thanks to a bad hold and kick in overtime. Meanwhile, the New York Giants actually went on the road and got the win over Seattle. Good, and Daniel Jones, he didn't really suck that day. He played okay for the most part. And if I'd have told you heading in this game that the Giants will end up with more wins than the Cincinnati Bengals at this point, you would have called me crazy. But hey, if you know the Bengals, they're susceptible of slow starts during the season. And right now they're 1-4. They're 1-4 after 5 weeks. This usually be the point of the season where the Bengals get going. With the offense having their best game of the week this week, I think they're going to feed into that momentum. Hopefully, the defense can catch up. I'm rolling with the Bengals to win. And then on Monday Night Football, we have the Buffalo Bills taking on the New York Football Jets. And let me get the Bills after. And we got two pretty much idiotic weeks from both of these teams. But let me start with the Bills first. Because who throws 3 passes backed up in your own near your own goal line, and all you gotta do is run the ball, maybe get a first down, play for overtime. What are you doing? Using because you think Josh Allen is Superman, he could bail out your team? Oh yeah, Sean McDermott. I know he's hearing it for this week, and that's why the Bills lost their second straight game. Meanwhile, the Jets went on the road, lost in London to the Vikings, but that was the least newsworthy story of the game. Because 2 days later, despite winning 2 games this year, the team fired their head coach Robert Saleh. And part of me saying there's a lot of drama going on. Was it the relationship between and and I know everyone's thinking, even myself included, Aaron Rodgers had his hand in this in some form or fashion. He basically pulled a LeBron James saying, I don't like this coach, you're terrible, get him out of here. And from what I've heard in the background, they said that he was about to replace Nathaniel Hackett as offensive coordinator, who's pretty much a yes man. And if you don't know, Hackett is a yes man for Aaron Rodgers. He was going to let Todd Downing be the play caller for next week's game, which would probably make things a lot worse because both of those guys suck, and it's showing on the offense. But then part of me want to say it's not Robert Saleh's fault on why the team can't give Brees Hall only has 9 carries a game. Seriously, he's one of your best offensive weapons, and you don't give him the football. You just force feed letting Aaron Rodgers bail your team out, who's only 40 years old, a prima donna diva, who's only in it for himself and his ego and little else. Now that I got that out the way, the new head coach is their defensive coordinator. He's going to act as the interim. And with the Jets being a mess, and oh yeah, there's one more thing I forgot to highlight. Aaron Rodgers have an ankle sprain, and because of that, I'm going to pick the Bills to win because screw the Jets for their incompetence. And if the Bills lose this game, they do not need to win another one. I'm sorry. Bills, you better win this game. You better not make it close. Don't toy with your prey. And finally, we have our game of the week. And who would have thought it would have been the Battle of Maryland? With the Washington Commanders taking on the Baltimore Ravens. The Commanders, I hate to say this, but they actually look like one of the best teams in the league. Jayden Daniels, he had another good day, although he did throw an interception, but that's the least concern. Washington just looked like a totally different team. They look likable, and that's odd coming from Washington fans that they actually have a likable squad. Meanwhile, for the Ravens, they won 3 games in a row and put up their highest scoring game to date. And you can mostly thank Lamar Jackson bailing out his team as he threw for over 300 yards on the day. And thank God for Derrick Henry, he closed the game with that long run that set up Justin Tucker for one of his ice in the veins moments. In this game is actually going to be the perfect test to see where Jayden Daniels at in his development. And part of me wants, and I've actually gone back and forth with this one. Part of me want to take the Commanders because, man, they got a lot of momentum heading on both sides of the ball. Don't count out their defense. But I have to go with the slightly more experienced Ravens squad to win this game. Just don't let them get a double-digit lead in the fourth. All I'll say. And that concludes this pretty long Week 6 predictions. Tell me what y'all think in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Please gamble safely, and I'll see you next time.